All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Tennis Channel Inside In on the Tennis Channel Podcast Network, streaming on all your podcast platforms. Mitch Michals here from the Santa Monica studios as we are into the final stages of Roland Garros. A lot to discuss, a lot to digest. We're about to crown some champions in Paris, but before we do that, and really to help me break down all the action and get into all that, first time on the show, it's really nice for me to be building this like British UK network of sports analysts and tennis analysts. She's a sports presenter, a reporter, and commentator, and has covered a couple different sports. She was a high amateur tennis player herself, but in the tennis sphere has rose to prominence as one of the better presenters and commentators in the game. Jenny Drummond, welcome to the show, and Tennis Channel alum too. So Jenny Drummond, welcome to the show.
I am indeed. You can't take that from me, that's for sure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is a long time coming. I'm a big fan of your work. And before we get to this Roland Garros, which has been remarkable and a lot of different storylines, good, bad, whatnot, I just want to get to your backstory as the first time on this show. Doing some digging, I didn't quite realize that, and I know you're a little humble yourself, but you had quite the tennis career as an amateur growing up, and you were really committed to the game and committing to better yourself in the game. You ultimately got to the pros, but maybe in a different way than you thought as a kid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I was just like any other tennis lover when you're a child, and turned out I was quite good at it. So I was a top British junior for many years when I was young. Grew up playing with the likes of Naomi Brody, Naomi Cavady, and players like that. And then, yeah, unfortunately, I got injured when I was 18. I was at the point of sitting my SATs to hopefully go to UCLA. I hadn't decided if I wanted to go pro because I used to get homesick a lot. So I was like, I'm going to go to college and then see how we go. But yeah, I got injured. And then that was unfortunately the end of my actual playing career, but pivoted into the media side of things, which has been great ever since, to be honest.
Yeah, it had to have been, a challenge for you. Obviously, injuries and having your career cut short is something players and athletes of all different sports and walks of life face. But when you were faced with that pivotal moment, I guess my question would be, I know it's a deeper, open-ended one, but how are you able to, pivot, stay positive, and then ultimately attack a different area of life and getting into that broadcasting realm?
Well, to be honest, I played a lot of different sports as a kid. My parents, my grandparents were all really high level athletes, and I knew if I couldn't play professional sport, I wanted to sit and talk about it. I remember watching sports channels with my brother when we were young, and just think, how good would it be to have that job? So when I couldn't play anymore, I was like, well, let's go and pursue how I can talk about it. And it's not an easy industry to get into, that's for sure. And so many people say, how did you get into it? How did you do it? And I mean, you just kind of figure it out. I think everyone has a different journey into telly, let me tell you. That's for sure. But yeah, I guess I'm lucky in that I've always known what I wanted to do, play professional sport or talk about it. And
Right.
it's a lot easier to go after something when you know what you want. So I guess I just kind of found my own little route into sport and into TV. And I had a pretty good platform from playing to a high level as well.
Do you feel like that gave you that confidence and, obviously the interest, but also having the credibility as a high level player? You're starting to break in. You did it pretty quickly. You were probably known by some of the players that were starting their pro careers. Do you think that kind of gave you some credibility?
Well, I don't know, because I actually started working behind the scenes for so many years before I was on camera, because I wanted to show broadcasters, production staff, everyone that I knew what I was talking about, especially as a female in what was, let's say, 10, 15 years ago, certainly a more male-dominated industry. So I learned, I was a production manager, floor manager, broadcast manager, radio manager, all those things. A stage manager. I sat and listened to the likes of Jim Courier, Lindsay Davenport, Mary Carrillo, all of them for so many hours, Grand Slam after Grand Slam. How did they do it? Watching them, learning, and then just asked for my opportunities when I got them. I did everything that I could do, and it's worked so far.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly has. And you mentioned some legends. I've gotten the chance to speak to a few of them on this show. And kind of pinch yourself, but also you want to find the fine line between, sitting and paying attention, but also not just being like starstruck. And,
Oh
you know,
no, yeah.
it's
I
really
was
tough.
starstruck the first time I met Lindsay and
Yeah.
Jim for sure. Because I mean, I grew up watching Lindsay so much. And at first I was a bit like, oh my gosh, don't mess this up. But then you get to know them so well because you sitting in that room for so long. You get to know their kids, their husbands, their wives, everybody, and you very quickly realize they're just normal people.
It's crazy. It's crazy too with Lindsay because I've been at Tennis Channel for a bit now, and I remember when she had this like gangly, like shaggy haired kid, Jagger, and now
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
one of the
yeah,
top geniuses. Like I remember her,
exactly.
but they are all great people. I did want to ask you as well, from your playing days, just one thing. One of the people you got to play and learned under a little bit was Judy Murray. So I wanted to know
Yeah.
if you had anything you learned in particular, what the best piece of advice was you learned from the likes of Judy Murray.
Judy was very tough. So she was a Scotland coach when I was growing up, and I was my individual coach was Leon Smith, and he was coaching Andy at the time as well. So there was a lot of lessons to be learned around that time. Judy, I remember vividly. We must have been, how old were we? 10 or 11 or something. And she said to us, we were touring around Europe because in Scotland there aren't that many opportunities in terms of tournaments, so we would travel. Like I'd be in England every second weekend from when I was like age 8 to 14, and she'd say to us, if you can't carry your bags, pack less. we had like our big tennis bags and we're like 10, so obviously the massive ones, they like take over your whole body, and then you had this like full like trunk or duffel bag of stuff for the whole summer and you're 10 years old trying to drag it up, and she's just standing there like, yeah, pack less if you can't carry it because I'm not carrying that for you, you've got to learn.
That's so funny. I mean, it's great advice. I just the shrewdness to say that to a bunch of
Yeah.
10-year-olds is funny, and it sounds like it's on brand. But no, I've always thought tennis is interesting in a lot of ways, and you're somebody that can kind of speak on this covering other sports. But there's certain things about tennis that make it unique in certain senses. One being players coming out with those giant bags to warm up, like carrying all that own equipment. And then the other one was they warm up against their opponent before the game. Like I don't think you'd see that in like rugby or some of the sports you cover.
No, you warm up yourself. Like, for
Yeah.
example, in rugby, you'll run out with your team and practice or whatever. In golf, you're warming up at the driving range. It is funny tennis. It's very unique. It's like we could talk about it in slams as well. Who goes on the court and plays? What athlete plays till 3:07 a.m.?
Yeah, that's there's there's a lot to like about this tournament. There's a lot to question as well. I think it's a good time to get into Roland Garros now because
Sure.
we're recording this.
Good, we can stop
On,
talking about me now.
oh, it's good. We get the backstory. But going into Roland Garros these final days, and we're recording this with the women's semis set. We're finishing up, waiting for the last men's semi spot as we record this. But it's been very, very fascinating and very interesting. We've always thought, Jenny, that this might be a time when the lands and the winds of change are coming and the changing of the guard could happen. Unfortunately, on the men's side, Novak Djokovic was injured after winning an epic fourth round match. Two matches after he was in till 3 a.m, wins another 5-setter against Francisco Cerundolo, who's been playing great. And then it comes out he has a torn meniscus, had to have surgery, withdraws from the tournament, summer schedule in doubt. But just a brutal loss for him. And the way I look at it, Jenny, is just a poor way to go out. It's unfortunate that he was not able to take the court and theoretically get beaten, that his body was not letting him do that. A brutal break for a guy who gave so much at 37 and clearly was in it to win it.
Yeah, I think there's several aspects to unpick. I mean, you've got one that he wasn't happy with the court, obviously, with how much that hindered his knee, only he knows. But obviously we saw him falling over several times and it looked painful. He looked in a lot of discomfort with his knee. How he made that diving volley Superman shot, I do not know, with a torn meniscus, but that was some form of superhuman act. But also we have to take into consideration the fact that he is now 37. I mean, he's the most nimble, fit 37-year-old I've ever seen in my life. But I just wonder whether or not his body all this is taking a bit of a toll on him. He had 2 incredibly long 5-setters. So I think maybe a bit of a combination of all of them, plus obviously he's hurt his knee whilst playing, has been an issue. But there's a lot at stake for him. You know, he's going to lose his #1 ranking at the end of this. He's lost his shot at 25th Grand Slam to take the lead. He's also, Wimbledon's out of the picture pretty much, and the Olympics too. He doesn't have an Olympic medal. That's something that he has said that he wants to prioritize. So he's going to be absolutely gutted not to be on the court.
Yeah, torn meniscus, did have surgery this morning.
Yeah.
Again, we're not in the medical field. It sounds like Wimbledon's out of the picture, but the Olympics could still be around. We'll see as far as that goes. First withdrawal in 76 major appearances, which is just a staggering number. But as you said, loses that #1 ranking and still has yet to make a final this year, let alone win a tournament. So gutting for Djokovic, because you know that he was giving it his all in these matches. But with that, knowing that happened, I mean, Jannik Sinner now becomes the first Italian man, Jenny, and 29th ever. I think people don't realize how rare it is to get to #1. We've had the rankings for over 50 years now, and only 29 men have done it. And now Jannik Sinner, getting into the semifinals, becomes the new #1 on Monday.
Yeah, I think that is so incredibly exciting for him, but I don't think he'll be able to properly enjoy it until this tournament is done. Obviously, his goal is to win it, and especially with Djokovic not in the tournament anymore, it does open it up a tiny toty little bit, because he's got a pretty big hurdle ahead of him if he's to get to the final and to go on to win the tournament.
He does, but I will say that, and you could have said the same thing for Alcaraz's opponent next match, there was a lot of questions about his form and his health, and really his ability to translate this success that he's shown on hard court onto the clay. But he's passed every test so far. Now that the test gets hard, we're going into the master's level test here. But so far, so good. Health-wise was the most encouraging thing. The hip has been a non-issue so far.
Yeah, I wondered if it was going to hurt him a little bit in the last match. It was against Dimitrov. I mean, Dimitrov didn't really show up at the races for Sinner. Sinner was pretty good indeed, but whether or not, we just don't know. He's very good at hiding if he's in a little bit of pain, if he's changing anything, if his movement's a little bit different. But he will be very pleased with the fact that that match was just 2 hours 15 minutes or so, and then he gets 2 days off before this huge match against Carlos Alcaraz. Because let's be honest, if history is anything to go by, the standard of tennis that these two guys produce over several hours is just absolutely mind-boggling, and on clay as well. So they're both going to need to be at full fitness.
I felt like, as a fan, we were unfortunate by the matchups. It would have been better if Sinner played Tsitsipas and Alcaraz played Dimitrov, because the styles make fights argument that you can use in combat sports, that the favorites just matched up so well. And in the Alcaraz Tsitsipas case, we saw it again. It's 6-0 now. And as my friend Gil Gross says, and as some other people have said, it's been trending in one direction. They're not getting closer when they play. Alcaraz has the hammer, and he's unwilling to let it up. And Tsitsipas, for the first time in his professional career, is openly questioning, what can I do to beat this guy?
Yeah, it was really funny watching his post-match press conference and him saying there must have been some voodoo stuff going on the court, because he couldn't get a handle on it. He was trying so hard with everything, but he just looked completely bewildered, and so did his dad. The two of them, they couldn't get the game plan together, and you could see what Alcaraz was doing. He was just hitting so high up to the Tsitsipas backhand, and he couldn't handle it. Look at match point, how far over Alcaraz was serving, and he's still, I was like, come on, he must go down the tee here just to wind him up on match point. Nope, kick her out wide, off he went again. It was, I mean, that game plan for Alcaraz worked like an absolute treat.
The quote was, "The kid is too good." That was a direct quote from Tsitsipas. And look, Jenny, you make great points, but one thing that I don't think gets enough credit, we know all about Alcaraz's skill level, his athleticism, how mature he is for his age, but how cerebral he is. Like, he knows Tsitsipas has a weakness. He knows how to target it. I think that's, if you want to find areas where Alcaraz doesn't get enough credit, or what we're not talking about as much, is that with his game plan with Coach Jan Carlos Ferraro, he knows how to execute a game plan and target weaknesses out there.
Yeah, I think the tennis IQ that he possesses is incredible, and that's you're seeing that now with some of the younger players. They're possessing that a lot quicker, a lot earlier. Look at the women's game. I'm sure we'll speak about her shortly. Coco Gauff, Iga Swiatek, their tennis IQs are so high. You can see it with Sinner, how quickly it's come on. You could speak about Mirra Andreeva too, her tennis IQ. And I think that's a massive, massive part of it. It's also the mental side. I mean, it just seems like Alcaraz manages his emotions. He said that after his match, actually, he managed his emotions really well on the court. That's something that Tsitsipas can struggle to do, because we know that he wears his heart on his sleeve, and he isn't great at hiding it. He doesn't have a poker face, let's put it that way.
No, he doesn't. This is a tough situation to be in. It's tough when you've been one of the best your whole life at something, one of the absolute best.
Yeah, he's been in the top 5, when Roger Rafa and Novak were around, when the top 3 were there.
Right.
And then now he's fighting for a place in the top 10, and this new kid's come in, or 2 new kids have come in, and he's like, where's my place? It's my turn. I should be there.
It's something, and maybe even like Holger Rune can have the same issues too. It's something when you've been growing up, it's something, and very few can relate to this, where you're the very best. Coming up as a kid, you're beating everybody, and now you run into somebody better at you than this. And it's tough. It's tough to reconcile that, and it's tough to go to the game plan and figure out a way past.
Like ego, you're like, I'm older than you. I've been doing this longer than you. Why am I not better than you? I'm putting in the same amount of effort. What's happening?
It's crazy.
That's sport.
It is sport. It is. More with Jenny Drummond here on Tennis Channel Inside In, talking with the sports commentator, presenter, tennis journalist as well. We're going to get to the other side of the men's thing and then preview those semis in a second. We're still waiting up on some stuff to happen in that last match, Zverev Demon Hour. But going to the women right now, we have semifinals that are set. At the top, we had chalk. At the bottom, we had kind of chaos and some upsets. Going to the top, though, we can start all Roland Garros women's coverage, Jenny, with a simple statement that the Iga Swiatek Express just rolls along. I mean, it is a downhill train, and it's tough to get out of the way. She just beat a major champion in Vondrousova by giving up 2 games. Had a double bagel before that. Iga Swiatek, after that scare with Naomi Osaka, snapped right back into reality, and it's proving time and time again that it is going to take a Hercules-like effort to knock her out of this tournament.
Yeah, I was thinking about this earlier, and she's making the top players in the world look distinctly average on the court, which is just unbelievable to see. Naomi Osaka, you mentioned her, what an incredible match that was. I have to say, I so enjoyed watching it, to see Naomi be back at that level, to be able to produce that type of tennis, to look like she was enjoying the match, which was, I think, the most pleasing thing to see. I can't wait to see what she's going to do over the summer, in particular the US Open, because that's her tournament. That's the one that she loves, the hard court swing. She absolutely loves it. But since that, I mean, I feel like that gave Swiatek a massive reality check in terms of her level, how she was approaching matches, and it's just narrowed her focus to reach to try and claim a 4th Roland Garros title. She's just turned 23 years old. It's remarkably impressive. But Coco Gauff, their head to head is extremely interesting. I mean, it's so one-sided in favor of Iga. It's wild. But Coco doesn't kind of fuss about that. She's like, well, yeah, it's against me, but the pressure's on her. She's meant to beat me, and it just seems like Coco's really confident. She's just putting that out of her mind. The mental strength of hers has really come on over the last year or 2, and I think she's really excited.
I think so too. The way you described Iga was perfect. She's making the best players look very average. There's just something. Her all-court game is great, and her approach to tennis and life in general is great. But something just fits perfectly on these courts and on the clay, especially this type of clay. So you get the sense that she's never going to beat herself. She's going to be in the fight every match. And a good start, a good finish isn't enough. You have to play a complete match. If there's a dip at all, she's going to take advantage of that. On the Coco front, though, the confidence is key. And I've always, with the Iga matchup, but going through beating on Jabeur, losing the first set, she's someone that will continue to fight and make adjustments now, which is, I think, a new thing for her that she's added to her game, the ability to kind of problem solve at this level. She is kind of like, and I said this before, but it's like that little sister, little sibling. that might have lost a bunch of fights, but they're going to keep going at their big sister the next time. So I'm with you. 10-1 does not sound good, and there's a reason why she's a sizable underdog. But at the very least, the self-belief is going to be there.
Yeah, and I think that Swiatek can't take her foot off the gas at any point if she's leading, because as you said, looking at that match with Jabeur as well, Gauff is just going to look at any type of opportunity, a 30-all, a love 15 on the Swiatek serve. She's just going to try and get any little hint, try and break serve. Obviously, the double faults have been something that Gauff has been working on for a while. They did disappear, but they've come back a little bit during Roland Garros. They haven't had a massive effect, but against someone like Swiatek, that's got to be nice and tight, and that's again going to be a lot of mental strength. And to be honest, I imagine there'll be a few little nerves out there, because if you're either Swiatek or Gauff, both obviously won Grand Slams before, you're looking to the other side of the draw, and those are two very inexperienced players in terms of going that deep in a major. So it's a huge chance for both of them.
It certainly is. We know how Iga plays. I mentioned downhill, but if she gets a lead in a match, she plays quick. She's a quick rhythm server. She gets into it, and it could be one break to two very quickly. And just for Coco, I mean, it's been great to fight against Jabeur some of these matches, but she can't double fault against Iga. Like, if that happens, it's like sayonara. And the forehand too. The much talked about, much maligned forehand in a lot of ways. How she hits it, how she can stay in the fight. I'm really looking forward to this match.
Yeah, me too.
Two obviously great players, and Coco now, Jenny, just to put a bow on this, will be up to number 2 in the world with Sabalenka's loss today. So an impressive run. Somebody that I saw the stat would have been, the point she has would have been number 1 in a lot of other years.
Yeah.
She just has Iga Swiatek and Aryna Sabalenka in front of her a lot of times.
Yeah, she does. But we have to remember she's only 20 years old. I mean, she's been on the tour since she was, 15, 14 when she broke through at Wimbledon. And we think she's been around for ages, because she has. A whole 5 years on the tour is a long time. But she still has so much growing to do. And I mean, her career is already fantastic, but it's just going to go from strength to strength. So I'm sure she'll be gunning for that number 1 ranking title, no matter what.
A lot more with that one. The other side, I mentioned the women did not hold the firm. We thought we might get chalk in the semis, and we ended up getting 2 out of 4 because we saw some upsets. Mirra Andreeva knocking off Aryna Sabalenka, the 17-year-old Russian who's been talked about. That was her moment. There's no denying that, Jenny. Andreeva has arrived. She beat Sabalenka, who was undefeated, hadn't lost a set in 8 quarterfinal appearances before that in majors. Goes out in 3 sets to the 17-year-old Russian, who has a big game and played a third set like a seasoned veteran against the most powerful player in women's tennis. Hats off, and just full marks to what Mirra Andreeva did.
Yeah, she is one gutsy 17-year-old. She handled the moment really well, considering, I mean, it was obvious to all eyes that Aryna Sabalenka wasn't feeling well. She had the doctor on. She was taking painkillers. She wasn't herself by any stretch of the imagination, but she was able to play, and she kept going. So I imagine she thought that, that she had a chance to win if she was still on the court. But Mirra Andreeva did so well at just 17 to manage all of that, not get put off, and to stay composed, to come through for the biggest win of her life. I actually interviewed her on court at Wimbledon last year when she got into the 3rd round or the 4th round. She got to the 4th round, but I can't remember which round it was. I interviewed her, and she was just so impressive. She just, she has this smile. She has this kind of vulnerability and naivety to her. She said that in her post-match interview, she said that she had a plan with Conchita Martinez, but she forgot it all. There's just this natural instinct with her on the court, and you can see that. So I think against Jasmine Paolini, that's going to be who can handle the occasion better. It's not necessarily about the tennis. Obviously, the better tennis you play, you're more likely to win, but there's so much that comes with that match other than the actual hitting the ball in the court.
Conchita Martinez, great addition to her team. Someone that's been there with Garbini Muguruza, just done a great job. The maturity there. Was that the Wimbledon when she said she's just mesmerized by Andy Murray? Murray said you should probably get your eyes checked.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
exactly. I think she said one of the quotes to me actually. It was quite funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also because she'd never been at Wimbledon, so
No.
it was so new for her. It was amazing.
She's got an 11-4 record in majors. So remember, Aussie junior, played the
Yeah.
junior tournament last year. This is her second go round officially in majors, already into the semifinal. I think too, and I know Sabalenka had, the stomach issues, was a little out of it. And we know how good she is. And Arena Sabalenka, a testament to her when I say this, she can snap out of it. So it can be a challenge on the other side of the net to see that and think, okay, I've got this. Maybe I can let my guard down and play safer. That's what really impressed me because the game's been there and it's only going to get better for Andreeva. But handling the moment, handling a player that can turn it on, is a champion, and is going to bring you their best punch. But she minimized errors, and that third set was very veteran-like.
Yeah, I think that will give someone like Conchita Martinez a lot of pride, and it will be. I'd love to get her thoughts on what she thinks of Andreeva and that performance today, because, as you said, she's worked with so many great champions. She's a champion herself, and I think it's a really smart move for someone as young as Andreeva to have someone as experienced as Martinez in the camp as well at this stage, because you can
Right.
see from her results. You mentioned her Grand Slam record. That was a fourth round at Wimbledon last year, a fourth round at the Australian Open in January, and then now semi-final at Roland Garros. They're all on the bounce. That is incredibly impressive, and obviously her career is taking off. So there's going to be a lot more attention on her because she's 17. I mean, there were stats flying around after her win this afternoon to say, she's the first 17-year-old since Martina Hingis to be in a Grand Slam semi-final. The first youngest. There's like 10 days between her and Maria Sharapova or something like that. I looked up.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but there's going to be a lot more attention on her, all that sort of stuff. So it's going to
Right.
be interesting to see how she starts to manage that as she dips her toe into the spotlight.
Yeah, she also asked her mom to politely or maybe unpolitely leave the box during the match, which was a funny moment as well. But no, hats off to Andreeva. This is only the start of something special. I think we were all expecting this, but maybe it's a little sooner than we thought. She'll play Jenny in the semifinals. Jasmine Paolini, who beat Elena Rybakina in 3 sets in the first quarterfinal this morning. Paolini, the diminutive Italian, a fighter, a big moment for Italian tennis now, but had never reached past the second round at Roland Garros. Before this year, hadn't even reached past the second round of any Grand Slam. And she continues to impress, wins Dubai, keeps it going, and now beats a major champion in Elena Rybakina in 3 sets. Paolini has that fighting spirit and has the ability to, I thought, throw some variety at Rybakina, really mix it up and find a way to be clutch on the biggest points.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if the Italians will like your pronunciation of Paolini, but
And I've interviewed her too, so I feel bad, but I don't think she'll take it personal.
she's a ray of sunshine. She'll be great.
Yeah.
But look, I am so excited about her. She brings a smile to everybody's face when she steps on the court. And do you know, it was interesting. She's 28 years old. She's the oldest of all 4 semi-finalists. The others, 23, 20, and 17. It's a young,
old person.
yeah. She she's the grandma of the group, which is wild at 28. So, I'm so pleased for her, because it is hard to keep fighting through your career and then get that breakthrough at 28 to try and have the belief. This time last year, she was 53 in the world. To then be inside the top 15 now, she really has cemented her place. She's got better at a lot of different things. Now everyone comes to expect her to hang in every single match, to be there, to be a tough opponent. And she's had such a great tournament. She deserves it to beat someone like Rybakina, who on paper I thought, oh well, Rybakina's, she's got such a big game, she's just going to play through her. But Paolini, I mean, she said she was nervous in that second set, but again, maturity and belief got her through that third set. And that smile on her face, it's just so infectious. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing that encounter between the two of them. Wow, what a debut for both of them in their major semifinals.
It's impressive. It's also impressive when you give up the size that that especially this women's game, it seems like it's getting bigger and stronger to find a way
And a
to
shout
have
out to
success at this
Italian
level.
tennis. They're doing something right,
Yeah,
aren't they?
yeah, yeah, they very much so. Doubles, singles, doesn't matter. And for Rebecca, I just wanted to point out, I mean, it wasn't her best day. Clearly made a ton of errors. I think
Mm,
close to 50, 48 in total.
yeah.
Not her best. It was good to see her get back to the quarterfinals. She heads to the grass, heads to your neck of the woods, Jenny. Still looking for that big result because we want to talk about the WTA in a lot of ways being a big four. She just hasn't had that big result this year. So we'll see if it happens yet again on the grass courts at the All England Club.
Yeah, exactly. She feels comfortable there. She knows what to expect. She's been there, done that. I think, yeah, she was disappointed with her performance today. And when you start badly, it's very hard to shake it off. I mean, in best of 3 sets as well, you don't obviously have as much time to feel your way into the match. And it was a bit blustery, a bit breezy out there as well. And I just think that played havoc with her a little bit. And she just didn't settle into the match quickly enough. But yes, it was a solid performance throughout Roland Garros. I think she'll just be frustrated that she missed an opportunity there to get through and to go even deeper at Roland Garros. But as we say, former champion at Wimbledon, and yeah, it's going to be an interesting summer, that's for sure.
It certainly will. For these semifinals, before we head back to the men and wrap this up, I think the Iga Coco match is going to be, star-studded. It's
Yeah.
great. It's got the hype. I wouldn't sleep on, though, especially, and I don't want to disrespect Jasmine, but if Andreeva wins that match and gets to a final, there's something to be said about that teenage dream of, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not thinking about it.
Yeah.
That would not surprise me if she gave the final a good match as well. So I'm not just saying Iga Coco winner, shoe in lock parade to the final.
Well, it's they played earlier this year actually in Madrid, and Andreeva beat Paolini so in straight sets. So that was only a couple months ago, less than a month ago. So it's going to be, but obviously, to be honest, a head-to-head at this point going into tomorrow's match counts for absolutely zero because it's all about what you do on the court at the time. But still, they've played each other. Andreeva will know what game plan that is. Paolini will know what she needs to alter in order to face Andreeva. I'm sure the coaches will be working overtime right now, watching all sorts of footage back to try and bring together the best game plan ahead of tomorrow.
Yeah, can't wait for it. Iga Coco starting us off. It's going to be fun. Can Coco finally turn it around, or is Iga marching towards a 4th Roland Garros title, which we wouldn't expect to be her last, by the way, at 23 years old. Just adding to her title collection would be crazy. Wrapping up here with Jenny Drummond on Tennis Channel Insight, and back to the men's side, we do have our semifinals set right now. The first person who got there by the walkover was Casper Ruud. Did not have to face Djokovic, so gets a little bit of rest there, which is nice for his sake. And I just wanted to point this out. I know it's been brought up, but Jenny, Casper Ruud is 1 match away from his 3rd Roland Garros final. And I know we live in an era where we're talking about potential and who matches up well and who can do this shot and what, but the guy's results speak for himself. He has done it again at this tournament, getting to at least the semis, and suddenly 1 match away from pulling a three-peat and getting to another final. It's just remarkable.
Clay is his best surface without a shadow of a doubt. You see how comfortable he is on the surface, and he's so much better at problem solving on clay as well. I think he finds his own way. He's had some tough battles throughout this campaign as well, but to be honest, I think he would have really wanted to have played Djokovic and beaten him because losing to him in a final is devastating. But I wonder if it's 3rd time lucky. I mean, it's hard to get to 3 finals, 3 consecutive finals at Roland Garros and lose them all. I mean, I'm sure you could have a word with Andy Murray. There are several players who lost several Grand Slam finals before they eventually won their first one. But
yeah,
it's he's got tough opposition.
He does. It's not a bad way to make a nice little payday, though, to just not have to play and get to the next round.
I'm sure it's enough in the bank.
Yeah, that said, though, I mean, every time I watch him play, especially on clay, the word that comes to mind is professional.
Mhm.
He just, everything about how he plays, how he approaches it, and how he attacks each match is very professional and workmanlike out there. Even that Taylor Fritz match, Fritz had his ups and downs on the match too.
Yeah.
But Ruud, the fitness levels there, he just outfoxed him, outweighted him, and can go the distance. So you'll get Alexander Zverev, who just defeated Alex de Minaur at the time of this recording, in 3 tight sets. A tough one for Demon, because that second set was his, 76 minutes long, 4-love in the tiebreak. Zverev finds a way, and that really is the mark of the great players, is just finding a way to get that set in your back pocket when you're not at your best.
You know, I have to say, I'm actually a big Alex de Minaur fan. I've worked with him quite a lot in a few different tournaments, and he is hilarious. He's got such a wicked sense of humor, and you didn't expect that from him. I think it's a side of him that's just starting to come out now because he's kind of feeling comfortable on the tour.
The parking video at Indian Wells, that made him like
So
a
great.
social media.
So great. He's got such a dry sense of humor, which I would say a lot of Brits like, because our sense of humor is similar. But I'm a bit gutted for him, only because he's been playing such great tennis, and he knows himself that to have that opportunity against someone like Zverev, to be 4-love up in the tiebreak, just to try and win one more point on his serve, and especially when Zverev played an absolutely shocking first 4 points, and there was a couple more shockers in there as well. That's gutting, to go 2 sets down and then to try and have to mentally come back when you're facing someone like Zverev, who was serving big. And I think after the second set, Alex de Minaur's first serve percentage was about 42%. So that is a big uphill battle to climb if you're playing such a big server like Zverev at that kind of stage, 2 sets to love down. But I mean, credit to Zverev. He is digging deep in every single match, and as you said, he's finding a way. But my goodness, isn't he hungry for a Grand Slam?
Yeah, for de Minaur, it's unfortunate, but he will be in the top 10 at the end of this tournament, which is good. And thank you for reinforcing the notion that, British women like de Minaur. That's also good to know as well at this point. No, but he ran into a great player, and Zverev, you said hungry for a Grand Slam. If not now, when, would be a question a lot of people are asking. This is setting up for him. He's rounding into form on the clay. He's done well here, 6 out of 7 years, making the quarterfinals. Alcaraz Sinner on the other side of the draw. Things could be lining up for Zverev. Though I will say, going into this match with Casper Ruud being fresh, not having to play the last match, even this 3-set match was a little heavy. He's played some heavy tennis, heavy minutes, I'd say. So that fitness level and how much he has in the tank might ultimately decide who wins this match.
Yeah, but also who played in the semi-final of Roland Garros last year? Casper Ruud and Alexander Zverev, and it was a straight set victory for Ruud. Now that one came as a bit of a surprise because Zverev had been playing such great tennis, so to be, toppled over so easily was a surprise. To be honest, I think Zverev is coming for revenge. I think that he will win that match.
Yeah, I think that last year he wasn't fully, I know it was an incredible run to the semi, but I don't think he was fully back from the ankle injury. So I think that's going to be a difference too. And the way Zverev plays, when he's also coming to net a little bit, he's gotten better and more committed at that. Yeah, I think that's going to be a heck of a match, as is, look, the other one. We get Alcaraz and Sinner for the 9th or 10th time, depending on if you count their challenger matchup. But the point being, it's a sensitive topic, but the point being, Jenny, is that this has become an iconic matchup, and it really has become the rivalry in all of tennis. I marvel at that fact, but I also point out that it's not just that they're the best players. It's not just that they're the same age and the same, ability to rise up the ranks and win Grand Slams now. But the way they play when they match up against each other truly is some of the best stuff we've seen in this game.
Yeah, and the level of respect for each other is so admirable. They are very well aware that they bring out the best in each other. I think, we've watched so many matches of Roger Rafa Novak playing each other, those rivalries, and there's only been a couple in there where one player hasn't turned up or can't turn it on at some point after a set. It's not very often that it's been very one-sided. So it is such an exciting rivalry, and there is a buzz that's created when they play. I mean, the US Open, last year was just something else, wasn't it? It's incredibly special to watch, and you just never know how many of them you're going to get to watch. Hopefully with these two, a lot more to come because they are so young. But there's a lot at stake for both of them here, a huge amount at stake. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can call that one.
No, you don't have to. I just think that
But
you mentioned
even in my head, I don't think I'm edging. You can ask me in the third set who I think
Yeah.
are going for.
Well, it's funny. It's just such a special brand of tennis they play, but you also got to think going into each one, who has the hammer, who's got the momentum, but also who's feeling the pressure.
Yeah.
I would say Alcaraz has the pressure on him as the favorite. Sinner's going to be number one. He's won the most recent major. And this is also, I mean, it was priced this way by the sports books and everything. This is supposed to be Alcaraz's surface.
Mhm.
So I think in a lot of ways, Alcaraz, and no one needs this, they're going to play a bunch of times. But I do think that if someone has more pressure, more weight on them in this match, it would be Carlos Alcaraz, because this is supposed to be his quote-unquote home turf.
Yeah, and he's, I guess, following in the footsteps of Rafa Nadal, given he's Spanish, all that sort of stuff. That's put on him as well. But I mean, you could also argue that Sinner's the favorite. He's the higher ranked. He's the higher seed. He won the last major. To be honest, I think it's pretty even. And I'm just really excited. I honestly can't wait for that.
I'd say the same thing as we wrap this up, that just the winner of this match, no guarantee that they win the whole thing. Also, best of five, how much is this going to take out of, if it's a 5-set, 5-hour match, what's that winner going to look like in the final? Again, stranger things have happened. We saw the Medvedev Sinner. Nobody gave Medvedev a chance in that Australian Open final, and he was up 2 sets before we knew it.
It's so true. So true. And then it disappeared from him, unfortunately.
Yeah. Tennis is in an interesting spot, though, with where we're at. We're going to crown a new Roland Garros champion for the first time in 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody new will have their name engraved, or 8 years, I should say, with Djokovic winning it the last time as the first new one. There's no big 3, big 4 in this tournament. And then I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Andy Murray, the only big 4 player to play Wimbledon.
I know.
Next month,
I was about to say the same thing. When was the last time that all three, Roger, Rafa, and Novak, didn't play Wimbledon? I was meant to look up that stat, but I don't have it off the top of my head. But it must
have to be before
a long time ago.
All three didn't play. It'd have to be a very long time ago, because you're looking at before Federer turned pro. 99, 98, 99. Wow. Yeah, it's interesting, but I'll wrap with this. I just think that where we are, these younger players stepping up on both tours, setting it up and carrying the mantle further. And, the best bring out the best in others. So I think we're going to see some new heads emerge on both tours, because someone's going to have to be in these finals and challenge these players. So
yeah, I think it's really exciting, but it's also the level that they're bringing as well. I don't feel like the level, we were so lucky with an incredible era for so long, and we got used to that level, and the level that these young they're not kids, they're adults. Well, Andreeva isn't quite, but that these young adults, these young pros are bringing, it's just off the charts, and it's so exciting to see where it's going to go.
Well, Jenny Drummond, this was a blast. Hopefully the first of many podcast appearances here on Tennis Channel Inside In.
Will you say hi to the Tennis Channel team for me, please?
I will. Everyone's in France, though, so it'll be a rain check.
Okay,
I'm one of the few that's back. But I wanted to ask you, what's on deck, what's on tap for you in your broadcast career, your tennis schedule in the next couple weeks?
It's going a bit mad, actually. So, the grass court season. So we've got I'm doing a bit of Queens, and then Hurlingham, which is the exhibition tournament, and then Wimbledon. And then I move into a little golf after that, and some rugby, some Olympics. So it's a bit of a bonkers summer when it's an Olympic year, but it's really fun.
I did see Roger Federer golfing today on my social media.
I actually sent that to my boyfriend, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, is this gonna happen? Is this gonna happen?"
Yeah, maybe just keep those rugby players away from tennis players. But I don't know if that cross promotion would be good. But it is a great sport.
Can you imagine if he starts playing on the PGA Tour or something?
More Federer in the sports world is better. Jenny Drummond, this was a blast. Thank you so much for coming on Tennis Channel Inside In. We'll have to do this again.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.